is, I have no idea who is around. I can see that Mohit and April have posted messages, and Najib Ivan. Now, I'm not sure if I know you. Is it Ivan?
Hello, yes, it's me.
Hello, is that Ivan? Should I be calling you Ivan or Najib?
No, my name is Najib, but Ivan, there is a story behind this name, the second name of Ivan.
Okay, and where are you from? Are you from Russia?
No, I'm not from Russia, I'm from Algeria.
Okay. The reason why I guessed is that Ivan, to me, seems to be a fairly typical Russian name. Okay, so you're from Algeria, yes? Or Nigeria? Algeria.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm from Algeria. And I want to tell you the story of the second name, Ivan.
Yes, please do.
When I was studying in another city, I was in the campus, and my room had, there were block A, block B. I was in the block I, in the room 20, and in French, I-20, it's Ivan. This is why my friends call me Ivan.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Okay. So, Najib, have you ever watched Downton Abbey?
What? Could you repeat the question?
The TV series Downton Abbey. It's a very popular series that finished not very long ago, and everyone was watching it when it was being aired on the TV in Britain. So have you ever heard of it? Have you ever watched it?
No, I have never heard about it, but I have been watching a lot of series, but not this one.
Okay, so I think particularly outside of Europe, it's perhaps not quite as well known, but certainly in Europe, in the US, it was reckoned to be one of the most popular TV historic dramas ever made.
Oh.
And beautifully made historic drama about the British aristocracy. And it was showing how in the 20th century they had to change quite dramatically. So can I switch over to you, Mohit? Mohit, did you get a chance to have a look at those clips that I put on the forum?
I'm just looking at it.
Okay, so you haven't come across Downton Abbey before now then, is that right?
Sorry, I couldn't get you.
You haven't watched it?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so Lynn has given me a list of everyone who is around. Hermine, I think you have watched Downton Abbey, haven't you?
Yes, Marianne, indeed. But we can watch it regularly and not in the English language. What I think is a pity, because lots of people could learn English. And there was a time on a channel, I think it was last autumn, where they showed film after film. Yeah, this was in one. It was at a weekend. I mean, I spent a whole weekend watching Downton Abbey.
I think I remember when you saw that, because I think you made a comment about it, but I didn't realise that it wasn't in English. Now, you see, I have the disadvantage, or maybe the advantage, that because I'm never in the UK and I don't have a TV, the only way I can watch TV series like this is that I download them from the internet. And of course, that means that I see it in English. And like you, I was able to, what I would call binge. I could watch episode after episode, one after the other. Yeah. And sometimes that can be okay because you keep the story fresh in your mind. Okay, Nippur. Now, with a name like Nippur, where are you from?
I am Hernan, Marian. It's Nippur is my nickname for the forum. Actually, it was based on a fictional character from an old comic here, an action figure.
So where are you from?
I am Hernan from Buenos Aires, Argentina. We had several sessions together already.
I think so, yes. It's just your name wasn't so familiar to me. Now, have you ever watched Downton Abbey?
No, but I downloaded a couple of seasons for my mother and my sister. I didn't have the time yet to watch them, but definitely I will do it in the future when I really want to have the time to do that, and probably will. I need to try to schedule it with my wife so we can kill two birds with one stone or something like that.
Hello.
Okay, and so Naval, have you watched Downton Abbey?
No.
No. Okay, and Hernan, have you watched?
Sorry, are you talking to me again?
Yeah, Hernan.
Yes, it's me. Nippur, Hernan, it's the same. It's me.
Okay. So why am I seeing? Okay, sorry, I'm getting confused because you have two names. Okay, so I call you Hernan.
One in the forum, and one on Skype. This is my Skype ID, and Hernan is my true name. Hernan is my name.
And April, I think. Yes, I know that you have been watching Downton Abbey, so perhaps you and Hermine know most about this series. Now, to start you off, okay, I've got a couple of paragraphs here that give a summary of what the story is about. So, who would like to volunteer first to read these two paragraphs?
I could do, Marianne, if you want.
Okay, now, was that Hermine?
Yes.
Okay, so Hermine, would you like to read the first two paragraphs, please?
Okay. Downton Abbey is a historical period drama television series created by Julian Fellows and co-produced by Carnival Films and Masterpiece. It first aired on ITV in the United Kingdom on the 26th September 2010 and on PBS in the United States on the 9th January 2011 as part of the Masterpiece Classic Anthology. The series set in the fictional Yorkshire country estate of Downton Abbey between 1912 and 1925 depicts the lives of the aristocratic Crawley family and their domestic servants in the post-Edwardian era, with the great events in history having an effect on their lives and on the British social hierarchy. Events depicted throughout the series include news of the sinking of the RMS Titanic in the first series, the outbreak of the First World War, the Spanish influenza pandemic, and the Marconi scandal in the second series, the Irish War of Independence leading to the formation of the Irish Free State in the third series, the Teapot Dome scandal in the fourth series, and the British general election of 1923, the Jallianwala massacre and the Beer Hall Putsch in the fifth series. The sixth and final series introduced the rise of the working class during the interwar period and hints towards the eventual decline of the British aristocracy.
Very good. Very nice. So that gives a very good summary about what this series covers in terms of the historical background. So, Hermine, what do you understand by a pandemic? So we have a pandemic of influenza.
Okay. As for me, the Spanish influenza is a disease, or was a disease they had to cope with, and pandemic. I don't know. I would have to look it up.
Okay, let's ask April, because April is our medical expert. What is a pandemic?
I think pandemic is when an illness very spread out in the whole country.
Okay, nearly. I think it's more than just the whole country. It actually covers many countries. So, for instance, HIV is seen as a pandemic, and the Spanish flu after the Second World War was actually affected people in many countries. So an epidemic would be perhaps in the whole country, but then a pandemic is where it's affecting more than one country. Okay, so April. Well, first of all, are there any questions? Does anyone not understand any of the vocabulary?
Marianne, sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
I assume that you have seen a lot of, how did you say, a lot of episodes. And I would like, are they pretty confident with the material they give us? Or is it not all true what they show us?
Well, we're going to continue on to that. I would say that the historic events that they portray are pretty accurate. We can discuss a bit later how they actually portray the aristocracy and the family in terms of the accuracy there, because that is perhaps seen as a little bit more debatable. Now, it was probably before you came and maybe you didn't see the messages, but it's an area that I actually have quite a bit more knowledge than perhaps the average person, because when I studied history at university many, many years ago, in the final year, we had to pick a subject that we wanted to write a dissertation. Do you know what a dissertation is? It's like a thesis. And it actually made up about 20% of our degree, so it was quite important. And I actually picked as my subject the decline of the English aristocracy between 1870 and 1930. So I actually studied in quite a lot of detail one very typical aristocratic family and their fortunes. So that's why I've found Downton Abbey to be quite interesting, and we'll later on talk about its accuracy. But in terms of the actual historic events, yes, I would say that, you know, those things did happen, and they are not really misrepresented. Yeah. So does that answer your question, Hermine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marianne.
Okay. Were there any other questions about vocabulary?
No, yeah, not the vocabulary, but about the text. I can't remember that I noticed anything about, what was it, Marconi scandal and Teapot Dome in the series.
I don't remember the Teapot Dome. I think I remember the Marconi scandal. Okay. So, but I can't even really remember the context. Yeah. I don't know whether it was to do with shares in the company. I really can't remember the actual detail of that. The Teapot Dome, I don't remember. I think I just about remember the Juliana Bar massacre. And I don't remember the beer hall putsch. Okay, so I would have to look into in a little bit more detail. Okay, April, since you are there, would you like to read the next two paragraphs, please?
Gladly, thank you. Downton Abbey has received acclaim from television critics and won numerous accolades, including a Golden Globe Award for Best Miniseries or Television Film and a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Miniseries or Movie. It was recognized by Guinness World Records as the most critically acclaimed English language television series of 2011. It earned the most nominations of any international television series in the history of the Primetime Emmy Awards, with 27 in total after 2 series. It was the most watched television series on both ITV and PBS, and subsequently became the most successful British costume drama series since the 1981 television serial of Brideshead Revisited. Oh, I didn't know that. By the third series, it had become one of the most widely watched television drama shows in the world. On the 26th of March 2015, Carnival Films and ITV announced that the 6th series would be the last. It aired on ITV between the 20th of September 2015 and the 8th of November 2015. The final episode, serving as the annual Christmas special, was broadcast on the 25th of December 2015. Although there are no plans in place, there are strong rumors of a future film adaptation, with executive producer Gareth Neame saying that he was very interested, and bookmakers Ladbrokes stating that it only looks like being a matter of time before the film is released. But the film is only short. I don't think I will like that.
Yes. Well, it depends. It depends because it might take us into perhaps the 1930s, and it might be a bit different. Now, I don't know if you've ever come across it, but there was a series called Upstairs, Downstairs, which was very popular and ran for several years. And this was very similar, except probably it showed a more 50-50. I don't know. I mean, Downton Abbey also was probably 50-50. And they also made a subsequent series that I was very surprised to find. And that came out, I'm not sure, maybe 20 years after the first series, and took us into the 1930s. Now, somehow that wasn't quite the same because the actors were different. Yeah. Whereas if they make a feature movie, I would guess that they might try to use the same actors as in the series. I don't know.
Yes, I agree with April. I also know those kinds of series. The first one I saw was the Onedin or the Onedine lineage. It was about a ship owner, but they didn't show the servants. But there was another series. I think it was called Rose. I'm not sure. And there we could see or watch or were involved more in the ongoings in the about the servants. They had to walk the basement. I think they didn't live at the first floor, so it was always the cellar, I would say.
Right, they were always downstairs. That's what they say, downstairs. And in fact, in Downton Abbey, you notice that actually they are also downstairs. Yeah, and they're in the lower ground floor area, and they go upstairs to serve the family. Now, they live in the attic, but they actually had the kitchens and all the rooms where they worked were down below. And if you visit stately homes, you can actually see that this is a very typical arrangement in those houses. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to looking at a little bit more detail at the plot. So Mohit, would you care to read the next paragraph, please?
Yes, yes.
Okay, the first series.
First series comprising 7 episodes shows the life of fictional
Okay,
family.
Mohit, I have a real problem hearing you properly. There's some terrible background noise. Is there anything you can do about that? Because I can't really make out much what you're saying. Are you there, Mohit? Oh, okay. Maybe we better ask someone else to read. Yes, Najib, could you read, please? Because Mohit, I think there was some problem with the sound.
Okay. The first series, comprising 7 episodes, explores the lives of the fictional Crowley family, the hereditary heirs of Grantham, and their domestic servants begin the day after the historic sinking of the RMS Titanic on 1415 April 1920. The storyline centers on the female or entail governing the title elite, which endows title and estate exclusively to heirs male. As part of the backstory, the main character, Robert, Earl of Grantham, had resolved past financial difficulties by marrying Cora Levinson, an American heiress. Her considerable dowry is contractually incorporated into the comital entail in perpetuity. Robert and Cora have 3 daughters and no sons. As the eldest daughter, Lady Mary Crowley was to marry her second cousin, son of the then heir presumptive. The first episode began as New reaches Downton Abbey, that both Grantham heirs perished in the sinking of Titanic. A distant male cousin, solicitor Matthew Crowley, is from an upper middle class family, and his mother reminds him in episode 1 of series 1. Matthew Crowley becomes the new heir. The plot centers on the relationship between Lady Mary and Matthew, who resists embracing an aristocratic lifestyle.
Okay, great. Now, there were 1 or 2 quite technical terms there, which are more legal and to do with hereditary. Okay, do you understand what it means by hereditary?
No, but I will check the dictionary right now to find out.
So we have heritage. So really it's talking about how the family's house and land property goes down from father to son.
Yeah.
In Britain, it goes down through the eldest son. Yeah? So if a family doesn't have any sons, that means they then have to leave all of their wealth to a daughter. But with that, the problem is when she gets married, then all of her wealth will pass to her husband's side of the family. And I think this type of hereditary law is very common in most countries. There are some places, there's some areas in India, yeah, where the line actually goes through the daughter, but they are quite unusual. Yeah. So, we have these technical terms about how the property passes down the family. And so this is almost a constant worry throughout all of the episodes, because in fact, the family only has 3 daughters, no son. Okay. When we talk about a subplot, we're talking about a less important story, or a story within a story. So in Downton Abbey, there are many subplots. Yeah. Okay. Is there any other vocabulary there that you're not very sure about? Was it fairly clear? Anyone?
Wait, I think there is one word that I can't understand.
Nowadays, we don't have dowries in Britain, but you can see that even back then, the idea of a dowry was actually still quite important. Now, Mohit will know the problem of dowry in India. In India, it is still quite important for many families. So when the daughter marries, she's taking some wealth with her, and the parents have to find that money in order to get their daughters married to a suitable husband. It wasn't really that long ago when that situation was also quite common in Britain. Okay, Naval, would you like to read the next section?
Okay. A subplot involves John Bates, Lord Grantham's new valet, and Thomas Barrow, who resents Bates, replacing him Barrow to be demoted back to footman. Bates and Thomas remain at odds as Barrow works to sabotage Bates after learning he was recently released from jail for theft. In the storyline, Barrow, a gay man in the late Edwardian England, aided by Miss O'Brien, Lady Grantham's maid, creates havoc for most of the staff. Barrow is caught stealing but hands in his notice as he has joined the Royal Army Medical Corps. Matthew eventually falls in love with Lady Mary, but she rejects his proposal. Cora becomes pregnant but miscarries after O'Brien, mistakenly believing she was to be fired, retaliates by leaving a bar of soap on the slippery bathroom floor. The series ends just after the Archduke Franz Ferdinand's assassination and the outbreak of the First World War in July 1914. Series 2nd, 2011. The second series comprises 8 episodes and runs from the Battle of Somme in 1916 to 1918 flu pandemic. During the war, Downton Abbey is temporarily converted into an officers' hospital. Matthew becomes engaged to Lavinia Swire, a wealthy solicitor's daughter, and joins the British Army as an officer. William Mason, the second footman, finally gets permission from his father to join the army and becomes Matthew's soldier servant. Unfortunately, both are injured in a bomb blast. William dies from his wounds after a deathbed marriage to Daisy, the kitchen maid. Daisy never loved William, but Mrs. Patmore, Downton's cook, pressured her to make William's last days happy by marrying him at odds.
Okay, they're just words that I wanted to ask you about. So what do you understand by at odds? So that was right at the beginning. It was, what was it? Bates and Thomas remain at odds as Barrow works to sabotage Bates after learning he was recently released from jail. So at odds. And it's it's actually the phrase at odds.
The second line and the third line. At odds. Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, April is quite close to it. It's they remain against each other. They don't agree with each other. Yeah, they have a problem. They have a dispute with each other. Yeah? If you're at odds with something, you disagree. Yeah, and havoc. What is havoc?
Destruction.
Yeah, destruction, chaos, a bad situation. Yeah.
Yep.
And what about if you retaliate? What are you doing if you retaliate, Naval?
Retort. You retort.
Yeah, you get your own back.
Yes.
Yeah. So retort, get your own back, counterattack. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So the historic events there, it's set against the First World War. Now, during the First World War, many of the old big stately homes were actually used as hospitals to look after the wounded. So again, this was something that was actually quite authentic, yeah. And I think we had, I'm not sure, but I think we had some of the characters and maybe the servants were very unhappy about the situation because they felt that the house was being taken over by all of these soldiers. Yeah, so it was not very popular with some of the characters. Okay. I'm looking at the time here and we've only got 15 minutes. So we could go on and look at the rest of the story. But what I thought would be a good idea was to perhaps continue to talk a little bit more about the authenticity of the series, because this was something that Hermine brought up. And it was certainly something that I think was debated by people who were watching the series. Now I'm trying to scroll down to where there are some comments because you might find these quite interesting. One of the things that I can recommend about this series is that the language, the acting is superb. The English that they use is very clear and quite easy to understand. So for listening practice, this is actually a very good series to watch. You see some very nice scenes of English countryside. The house is very authentic in terms of the stately homes that you would see in Britain. And the costumes were absolutely superb. So, okay, I've got down to the section which talks about the reception. Yeah. So let's see, who would...
Marianne, may I ask a question? Here, I don't really understand in a sentence. I will put it in the chat. What does it mean, this one? Hands in notice. Barrel?
His notice. It's like you resign your job. So you have notice. You might have a month's notice. So you have to give your employer a month's warning before you leave. And that's called notice. So if you hand in your notice, that means you're giving a notice, you're giving a statement to say, I am going to leave in 1 month. And that means if you hand in your notice, that means you are working to your contract, you work 1 month and then nobody is going to get upset. If you just leave, then you've broken your contract. Yeah.
Okay,
so
thank you.
You wouldn't get paid perhaps, or, you know, so you hand in your notice, you get paid, you have your rights. Yeah. Okay, now let's see who else do we have? Okay, Hernan, would you like to read a bit about the reception, please?
Sure, of course. And if I may say, I cannot think about this topic without remembering a great movie, The Remains of the Day, with Anthony Hopkins. I think that it's one of his best performances. So, if you like,
yes.
yes.
Yeah.
So, sorry. Reception. Series 1, rating 91. Series 2, 85. I don't know if you want me to read this. Series 3.
Yeah, I mean, they did the figures. Yeah.
Series 4, 72. Series 5, 75. And Series 6, 76. The series has been noted for its relatively sympathetic portrayal of the aristocratic family and the class-based society of the early 20th century Britain. This has led to criticism from the political left and praise from the right. James Fenton wrote in the New York. I need to scroll back again. James Fenton wrote in the New York Review of Books. It is noticeable that the aristocrats in the series, even the ones who are supposed to be the most ridiculous, never lapse into the most offensive kind of upper-class drawl one would expect of them. Great care has been taken to keep them pleasant and approachable, even when the things they say are sometimes shown to be class-bound or unfeeling. Jerry Boyer argued in Forbes that the sympathy for aristocracy is overstated and that the show is simply more balanced than most period dramas, which he believes have had a tendency to demonize or ridicule upper-class characters. He wrote that Downton Abbey shows there is no inherent need for good TV to be left off center. Stories sympathetic to virtue, perseveration and property and admiration of nobility and of wealth can be told beautifully and to wide audiences. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, I don't think there's any tricky vocabulary there. Demonize. What do you understand, Hernan, by demonize?
Well, when you are certainly trying to portray something in a very negative way, to comparing them to, well, demons in this case.
Exactly, yes. So, so it's quite an interesting paragraph, this. Now, I certainly could see when I watched Downton Abbey that it had this sympathetic side. But I also would say that I don't feel particularly bad. I mean, I'm left-wing. I don't care how, politically. The aristocracy to me is, well, yeah, it's one of the things that we have in Britain. And one might say it was quite peculiar for me to choose it as a topic to actually do quite a bit of research on, because actually after that, I went completely the opposite direction and was researching early working class rebellion and strikes in the same period, in the earlier period of the 19th century. But for me, the aristocracy actually was, I would say, a positive evil, if you can call it that. I would say that they have done a lot to protect the British countryside, which in no way would have been protected if they hadn't been around. That they are a leftover from the old feudal days, but at the same time, I don't think behaved as badly in Britain as maybe they did in many other countries. Yeah. So I never had too much problem with the way that they were portrayed in this series. Yeah. Now, of course, in different countries, the aristocracy behaved in very different ways. The characters, I think, are very well developed, and I felt that actually, for me, it was I could understand why it was such a popular series. So, April, since you've watched the series, what did you like about it, and what did you not like about it?
Actually, I like all the whole story, the whole the whole story actually, because it is the romantic side of the story is very sometimes very touching also. There is so many times that I have to cry, Hermina maybe also, and then how the downstairs and upstairs link to each other. But this is maybe the stuff for the critics, because maybe it is not really true. But as you said, I don't have a problem with this, because I like to see that the downstairs and upstairs are not really separated, but they have a good relationship, and that is positive thing in that series actually. And
okay, so April, who was your favorite character then?
my favorite character is Mary.
Sorry?
Mary. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm afraid I thought she was a right bitch sometimes. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes, but she always go back to the good way actually. So I like
Yeah, I mean,
her characters.
I thought her acting was amazing. I thought she played that character so well. But she was also a character who I really felt I did not like, because she was always so condescending. You know what I mean by condescending?
No, condescending. What's that?
If you look down your nose at people.
Yeah. She has that. But in the beginning of the first episode, yes, she is very, very like that. But at the end, she changed, I think.
All the way through, she was like that. Yes, and especially to her sister. Yeah, because she was always fighting her sister, wasn't she?
Yeah, that's true.
So yes, so the characters are very, very plausible. Yeah. If I say plausible, what does that mean? If a character is plausible. Anyone? Hernan, do you know what I mean by plausible?
Plausible, yes, that it's something. That's something. It's possible that it can happen. That in reality, that the plot is something that it was very well could happen. Believable, yes.
Yeah.
And sorry about condescending. It's not like when someone constantly patronizes you, for instance.
Yes. Patronizing is another way of saying it. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's
I've been accused to that, so that is why.
But that's fairly typical of the whole rank pecking order. And again, you see, most societies have this pecking order. Yeah? So everywhere you have that. And sometimes it's better hidden. In France, it's there too. People say, oh, France is much more equal, fraternity, égalité, and all of that rubbish. But no, you have your old, we call it like old money, which is what we would say is like your aristocracy, where land is passed down the family. Yeah. And this sort of class society. Now, in the final episode, it's showing how the working class was getting stronger. in the 1920s and after the First World War. And in fact, it culminates in the general strike in 1926. So the working class are starting to get a little bit more muscle. And that's when you really start to see how the economic situation has really transformed the English aristocracy. To be a history teacher in the early part of the 19th century, the English aristocracy were top dogs. They owned all the land. They had all the working people working for them. If not in the factories, on their farms, on their land, they were tenant farmers in a very weak position. By the 1920s, this had totally gone the other way because people were working in the towns, in the factories, not so many in the countryside, and agriculture was no longer the most important industry for Britain. So if the landed aristocracy didn't change the way that they earned money, and this is where we actually see in Downton Abbey when the family start to invest in stocks and shares, they start to move their, they start to try and make their agriculture more commercial, more efficient. Yeah. So those features were very, very authentic in the storyline. Yeah. Is someone trying to say something here because I don't hear so well with my tablet? Okay, so we've reached 6 o'clock. I'm going to be very busy for the next 2 days reinstalling my Skype. This is the second time I've had this exact same problem, so I'm pretty sure I can get it back again. But yesterday, when Windows updated automatically, immediately I couldn't play any YouTube I just didn't hear anything. So I spent about 2 or 3 hours trying different tricks, because last time the fixes I did to get it back didn't work. I had to actually uninstall my sound driver, which sounds technical, but nowadays you can Google almost anything on the web and get an answer. So I managed to get the YouTube back, but didn't realize that probably the same problem had affected my my Skype. So on Friday, we will be back again, and if you've got any particular topics that you want to talk about, but I was thinking that we could perhaps go back to what we were looking at a few weeks ago and carry on looking at not happiness this time, but how positive thinking can actually transform the way we feel and how things actually work out for us. So there's actually a thread to have a look for on the forum called Positive Thinking, with I think 1 or 2 TED Talks, which I found particularly interesting on the subject. But I know that quite a few people have made some very interesting comments, and it's not a black or white issue. I think some people tend to be more perhaps pessimistic than others, and it works for them. Other people tend to be eternal optimists, like perhaps I am. So have a look at the comments that people have made, and think about how you feel, because like we had a few weeks ago, I want to first spend some time finding out what you think about the subject, and then we'll read, but perhaps a little bit less after I've got your views. Okay, well, thank you very much for your patience, and I'll see you again on Friday.
Thank you, Marianne. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marianne. See you next time. Looking forward to Friday.